And we have made it to our second match of the day. Afterlife and Amplify fresh off their first match. And we saw one team, Afterlife, they were able to get a win over Pirates in Pajamas in a 3-2 victory. Whereas their opponents, Amplify, ended up going down 3-1 in their own. Still searching for that first match win. And it's going to be Afterlife that they'll be fighting against to go and get that, Ray.
But one thing, I was casting both the O3 Splash games yesterday, and O3 Splash played both of these teams, beat them both, but both of them were able to take it to a map 5. So they have that in common. And as you can see on the screen, we have the Pirates in Pajamas in common. Afterlife literally just beat them 5. Keep in mind, both teams are coming off a 5-map series. For Afterlife, that's like a thriller. You are on like the high. Wow, we won a map 5. And then Amplify, it's like the exact opposite. It's just like gut-wrenching to get all the way to map 5 and to just lose it like that. And I was watching it on the break. It went down to the third and final map, and they just could not break through. But before we dive deeper into the series, let's go ahead and bring you guys the standings, because pretty much round 3 is done for everyone. So we got 2 undefeated teams left, Saints and O3 Splash, while everyone has taken a step back, in a shock. I don't know if it's shocking, but Wisp, one of the favorites in there, ended up going down to Timeless in the last round. So that's pretty crazy. That has really thrown a wrench in everything. And Timeless is actually going to be playing Saints right now. So that could be a big time game. So I am very excited to see how this develops as we move forward. But now we zero in on this match. Amplify, Afterlife. So the thing for Afterlife, Lethal is like the big pickup for this team. I mean, he comes with Overwatch League experience and all of that Redbirds experience that he's had. Such a prolific flex DPS player. And Zera yesterday was playing that Tracer, was flexing around as well, was just incredible. And Rhino has shown himself as quite the strong leader for their team. And it's just overall a very good roster. And Fix very quietly puts in work on that flex support role.
As a team, as you mentioned, has a lot of different players with various backgrounds, and as well, they've had the advantage here that a lot of teams don't, honestly, of playing together for a decent amount of time heading into this. So with the exception of a couple here, you're looking at these players who have experience, who've won with Overwatch League level experience, and the rest, this is their roster. We heard from their manager specifically saying that they're like the dark horse of this season. While they're getting off to a rather slow start with the amount of star power that you have, once you start to turn those gears, they start to get down to the grind, you're like, all right, this is a team that has this high level of play that can be pulled out at any moment. And Afterlife, they got that first win against Pirates in Pajamas, which is not a team to put down whatsoever. They are a big name within the NA contenders scene, and after winning that match, they're high off that win. That map 5 win is huge moving on forwards. I mean, you think about all of the positivity that's going through. It's such a feel good to be able to come away with it. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at Amplify, who, like you said, Ray, exact opposite effect. And knowing that these players also have a very similar level of experience here, they're not going to let that get to them.
Yeah, this team, 0-3 has not been able to secure that victory yet, hoping to turn that around here. They also had a rough last season of contenders during the spring series, has completely overhauled this roster, brings in Doge, who brings in that NAEU contenders, even Owl experience, has stepped forward as a big-time leader of the team. And then Buddy on this support puts in the work. I was talking to their manager, said he works extremely hard, VOD reviews, grinds, and in their match against O3 Splash, he played incredibly well, and it's been showing all the hard work he's put in.
work really gets you a good spot. While you have all these players that have these high levels of talent, if you don't put in that hard work to get there, then you can easily pass those guys up. And you look at those guys such as Buddy, such as Doge, to beat those guys, to step up. They want it bad. They want it bad, right? And Contenders is the spot for them to prove that they truly are a contender within the Overwatch scene, that they are one of these top level players to be reckoned with in any of these matches, and even have the chance of taking the step to a higher level. And you know, it all starts with that performance here. By the time we're done with this today, we'll be a third way through the Summer Series round robin stage. So these teams, especially looking at Amplify here, this is your chance to turn it around. You're down 0-3 right now. Going down a fourth map here is really going to turn out badly for them. When you look at how many matches that they have remaining, they did have some difficult opponents to start off. I definitely have to say their first 4 matches have not been an easy one so far, but you go ahead and look at Afterlife, certainly much more of a breather than somebody such as Pirates in Pajamas.
But also, if you're Afterlife, as we mentioned, the coach said, you know, we got this team together kind of late. We like our roster. We just don't have that synergy yet. But he talks about how this team is hungry to prove, like, yes, we are that team who's going to shock the world. And I'm just thinking, like, you got your 2 tough games out of the way. You lost to O3 Splash and you lost to Wisp. Then you come in to day 2, you get the victory over Pirates in Pajamas, big time win. So you got to be looking at Amplify, and you feel good about your chances of ending week 1 at a solid 2-2 score.
That would be an amazing way to start off a week for either of these teams. And, you know, we were talking about this a little bit, especially when you look at kind of these benchmarks we've been using. That 0-3 Splash game, both went down 2-3. Then we look at Pirates in Pajamas. That was a match that we saw Afterlife was able to overcome. They took that victory in map 5, and you know, that just wasn't the case. It was actually a 3-0 in favor of Pirates in Pajamas. When we saw that same case for Amplify here, if you lose those benchmarks alone, you're like, okay, this is something that Afterlife has been improving on. And like you said, the coach expects them to build up this synergy later down the line. And I think we find ourselves in a very similar situation as we did with Dragon Dance, that they're continuing to build their own synergy up, that they've drastically improved. They're taking the next steps to get there. And I want to see those same things come out of Afterlife.
Couldn't agree with you more. And like all matches we've seen, lots of bangers today, and this could be one for the books, and it's got to start somewhere. We do have that round 4 first set map coming in for you guys. We're going to be starting things out on Lijiang Tower.
Lijiang Tower. I do like that it is the maps that are rotated in and out, so we won't be starting and ending on the same ones consistently. Lijiang Tower, often one of those maps that will be picked first, and for a good reason. A lot of these teams, especially in this current meta, have been opting to go for more of this Winston dive with the Tracer, the Sombra, that can work really well on maps such as Gardens, but also their Amatra can be pulled out here. A rather strong selection on Control Center and Night Market, and even Gardens too, if you really want to go that route as well. So the amount of variety and niche strategies you can pull out of Lijiang Tower often keeps it as a prime choice in many teams and players' books, and it's for that reason it's one of my favorite ways to start out any series.
Yeah, Rhino and Doge also overall pretty extremely flexible tank players, so it opens the field for a lot of different styles of compositions. But we head in to day market first, and it looks like both teams are electing to go with these Winston-based compositions. Lethal has been amazing throughout all their matches on the Sombra, brings in that experience from Redbirds, from Overwatch League, but Zera, he is no slouch on this Tracer. Amplify has got to be weary of Zera just dominating their backlines.
If you let Zera get going, then you are in for a heck of a tough time here. Amplify, you gotta be sniffing that out quickly, because if Afterlife are able to start working along with Rhino, along with Lethal to set up these plays, it's not gonna be good. That's why Doge needs the one to pull the trigger first, fix way too far up, expecting Afterlife to make the commit, but didn't do it fast. So that's a huge advantage already gained in the favor of the blue team. So you're gonna want to start that rotation back to the objective here. Amplify, gotta get that first capture, and nothing really else to be said after 6 went down.
Yeah, as the PGE completely forced out, got extremely low on that Sombra. Amplify was just quicker to the gun in that fight as we see another one breaking out so quickly.
Already this fight is off to a banger, and it's actually PGE that gets caught out of all players. As a Sombra, you'd expect that one to stay alive, but not the case. With that little pickoff there, Doge going to be following, and Afterlife, this is their chance to flip the tables. Now that they're on it, it's all safe and sound, and they're keeping healthy.
And that is the power of Afterlife. Once they get going and they start coordinating, they are a tough team to beat. They push O3 Splash, one of the only remaining undefeated teams, to the edge of that map 5, and Lethal's already found Doge.
Not a good look, especially as the tank player. You have all of this health to go through. The fact that you're dying before your team can even go out is just the sign of miscommunication there. Amplify cannot let these things happen. Even if Afterlife aren't known for their synergy yet, there's still players that know how to capitalize off of these errors, and they're going to take the fight to them. Lethal using that store power, getting up to the high ground, not allowing power boost and Buddy to stabilize. Nobody there on the assist. Just another quick wipe off the board. I love the efficiency we're seeing from Afterlife right now.
Rhino and Lethal were just completely synced up on that play. EMP plus the Winston diving you and shocking you to death is just everything they needed. And in the meantime, while the counter dive comes in from Doge, the supports were there to back it up. As now we move into this next fight. However, Amplify has this EMP of their own to use, so this Tiny is their team fight to win.
All they got to do, hit that EMP trigger, Rhino instantly on the wrong side of the kill feed here. And yeah, Amplify can easily just storm this on through. I don't want to see them commit too much more than this. You just use your DPS ultimate, hold that nano and prime away in future engagements, and that's going to get you pretty much a weird even percentage.
And Afterlife gets to come back, and Zera has this pulse bomb in his pocket, has actually had a really good attach rate throughout Contenders so far. I'm excited to see if he's going to be able to make that happen once again. And we're going to get dueling rallies from both these Briggs, but Lethal's been sussed out.
Oh, yeah, that is the toughest part about playing this on a Brig here, is you get both of them looking at you, that you need to be aware of where these health break points are, especially as Sombra, and, you know, you don't have that tool to engage with the rest. Isn't going to go so well, so Amplify didn't even need to use any of those ultimate abilities there, and Afterlife just tossed away the pulse bomb.
And you just cannot have that happening if you're Afterlife. Silly mistakes are going to lead to map losses. And Amplify has just amplified the ultimate advantage they're going to have going forward as the nano goes on to Doge.
Initiation is key here, and Doge applying that pressure on his Brigida, not allowing to engage through, but all the support to the CC getting thrown the way of the Winston player, is not allowed to escape. Thankfully, as the Primal Rage to get these supports back off his back, rather. Meteor and Fix so low, and both will be falling to the arms of an angry 1,000-pound monkey out in the field. Amplify did end up losing the objective throughout all of that chaos. I feel like they're not out of this just yet. They got Buddy and the power boost off of this. Both of those final blows going the way of Lethal, and you saw that translocate come on through. Afterlife, they're not going to let this point sit in favor of Amplify. It is easy for them to walk onto the objective, force the positioning, and potentially even get the pick onto Doge here, which is absolutely massive.
Yeah, but they are going to get it to a nice, good 99%. So both teams are in final fight territory. Dueling EMPs. Lethal, you think, slightly, he has been an owl. He's the better player, and he gets a 3-man.
Who need to initiate Lethal is that owl player, like you said, knows when the trigger needs to be pulled and does it first. That's the key. With the EMP out here, Afterlife were on the ball. Amplify didn't even get a chance to realize what was going on around them before they were suddenly hacked and sent straight back first class to the spawn rooms. Afterlife claiming the first round of a day market out here, but it was pretty darn close in terms of the percentage-wise, and it shows that there is a lot of room for contention.
Both teams have had their highs and had their lows. Afterlife, I don't know if, they're still just riding the high of their victory, but like you mentioned, we saw in that first fight, they just weren't quick to the trigger that Amplify was. But as we progressed, they started to get that synergy back online, and then we started to see those fights. Lethal goes in, EMPs, and then they're just gone in the blink of an eye. As we now move into Gardens, we're not going to see any swaps from either of these teams, so it's going to be all about controlling this space around the point, and then once you have control, it's all about taking the avenues of re-engage away.
This map is so important when you look at positioning here. these narrow ways that they're moving through, along with all the potential for environmentals. And there's not a lot of opportunities to really push on. So you're looking at these DPS and tanks to get to that point, not only first, but kind of guard off this bridge, which Rhino is struggling to do with the pressure onto Meteor and Fix. That healing isn't coming in time, but once that's relieved, send Zero on the back line, keep Cap and PGE away from their support. Suddenly, look how the tables have turned, right? Amplify are able to get themselves onto the midpoint. Course a little soft retreat back from Afterlife while the DPS, they're fighting for the point. There's so many different skirmishes taking place, but Tap will be that first casually, resulting in an early Afterlife lead.
It's extremely hard once you have control of this point, which is Amplify. Which is Afterlife, for Amplify to be able to push back, because there's only two ways of contesting this point, and when coming back to EMP,
Lethal gets this. How does it even build it up? Was it off of Doge? Is it off the pressure on the back line? It doesn't even matter. The fact of it is that the EMP is there, and it is well before PGE, and that completely sets Afterlife ahead in so many different ways.
Tiny, that's one thing I've noticed about Lethal throughout all the matches I've been casting him. He is just on it when it comes to building this ult charge on Sombra. He can just farm it up so quickly. As he's there looking for a pulse.
Able to get it and has to get this on it too, especially after Fix has fallen, but Biggie has a big old shield for protection. These three players assaulting him. Eventually we'll get the targets with this Brigida, and yeah, you're gonna go ahead and walk away from that one. You got who you wanted to go for, but no supports available. Meteor ended up going off the map somehow, ideally at their own doing, so this is just a stall for that percentage point. Garden's notorious for it, but Afterlife gonna go ahead, give it up, and go for kind of a soft reset. They're still kind of hanging around here.
Yeah, and they're able to force out the recall, both Tracers, as now we see Afterlife trying to take this small room and take control of this Mega in here.
A Mega, but they forgot about the point, having to leap back, and then it gets time to prevent that flip back over. Amplify Primal Rage out. Doge did a very good job of zoning players away for the time being, but once they get this little regroup going, that's gonna be a bit more of an issue, especially when you look at Rhino in the backline and the EMP to follow it up. Lethal is just deadly with this focus fire. These EMPs, they build up so quick. They set up the team so gosh darn well. It's been such a long time since we've seen a carry performance like this from a Sombra.
As Sam would say, Lethal was pretty lethal in that fight. Would you not say that?
I was going to say that, but then I cringed internally when I thought about it. So I'll have to say it for another time.
I said the same thing to him yesterday on cast. As Amplify trying to push back in. Unfortunately, they used a lot in that fight, and Afterlife just has two ultimates online. We're looking at final fight territory for them. They're going to have to win this completely dry with no ultimates.
Oh, this is going to be a tough fight for Amplify to win. If anything, it's Afterlife's fight to lose here. We know how good they are at this initiation. You chuck the Nano onto Rhino, or even Meteor at this point would be okay. Buy that space. Don't allow the players to cross the bridge, and even get onto Buddy, who no longer has this fleet start. That's essentially the go signal to just collapse onto the Ana. Target is on their back here, but has to retreat. The Bionage is just enough to zone Rhino back. Amplify have guaranteed a touch, but they need to get another one. PGE ended up making the last second swap to the Sojourn, but you don't have that mobility that you would with the Sombra. It has to be on Tap's shoulders, who managed to get two with a Pulse Bomb +1 on top of it. But it can't just all be Tap here. Doge is sitting on the objective, and Power Boost finally grabs that auto player somehow, some way. Amplify managed to pull through with the absolute bare minimum.
They were able to build up to those support ultimates, and then, as you mentioned, Tap put the team on the shoulder, had the carry on the Tracer, found the Pulse Bomb stick, and gets the kill. Afterlife, however, Lethal has this EMP, and he has not had a dud yet. He can set his team up and take this 1-0 victory on Lijiang Tower.
Goodness, with this EMP so far from Lethal, and it's gonna stay that way. Look at that, only at a PGE. Rhino instantly pancakes the Soldier player. Amplify, they don't have the damage or the overclock to be able to follow through. What an identification of that ultimate and the target prioritization here. Amplify, they gotta hang on, and they're doing it by the skin of their teeth. Doge swinging away at the Winston, but all that focus fire, that hack! This is just crazy. The power Lethal has over the game, it puts the targets on the proper player's back and is going to secure them a dominant Lijiang Tower win.
Afterlife, they just had the better sync-ups together. Rhino and Lethal were just on the same page a little bit better than Doge and, it's escaping my mind right now, PGE. It was just that was the main difference there. If your Sombra and Winston are just synced up completely on the same page with his EMPs, there is nothing the enemy team could do about it at that point.
And that's the thing is, you can be the best player in the world, but if you can't play together with your team, you can only go so far. Lethal is just has that synergy with Rhino. That's all it was really there. These players, they work well together. You have the communication, and you can tell who that shot caller is. There is a clear leader within the battlefield here. That is what is pushing them over the edge right now. This is why Afterlife was able to make Lijiang Tower look like a breeze. While the percentages were close, a lot of these fights were just long. These flips came through. When all that dust settled, it went over to Afterlife, which then leads to the question of, when we go back to this, to our next map, Amplify, you're going back to the drawing board looking for an answer for this deadly Sombra that is lethal.
The question is, do you want to keep trying to match this mirror that it wasn't working as well as you were hoping? Or do you take it to more of a brawly close quarters map? Think King's Row. I mean, I saw them pull up an adaptation against O3 Splash. Excuse me, where they were trying to basically say no to Infected and deny his Winston. So they were playing Sombra Reaper and just hacking him and just shooting him with those Hellfire shotguns. So that's the big question. What direction do you want to take? Do you feel like you got to counterpick this comp, or do you feel like you can make the necessary adjustments and beat them at their own game?
It's going to come down here. There's only 3 hybrid map choices within the current pool, and all of them are pretty favored towards this Winston dive, so I don't expect that piece to change. However, the way you're playing around it totally can. There really isn't a realistic way to counter the Sombra other than just to keep her in check. Try to keep her off your backline if you can. You start to look to these other components. Sombra loses so much effectiveness. If you take away this combo that you're getting with Rhino, again, these guys are working so well together. You take away that little friendship that they got going on, suddenly lethal becomes a lot less lethal. There you go, Ray. Hope you're happy. And you're able to kind of work on with your day. You can play the game that you want to play instead of getting shut down at the gates.
As seems like we have the first map, not the first map. I mean, technically it's the first map pick for these teams. Sure. For Amplify, and looks as if we are going to Numbani.
Wow, I mean, Numbani being back in the map pool just feels weird. We went through that large period of time where Numbani just wasn't in Overwatch 2, and now that it's suddenly come back, I feel like a lot of people have almost forgotten how to play that map. In a way, there's been an adjustment period when they've been moving on kind of through that, and it's been very fascinating to kind of see and watch where that unfolds. And this map specifically, I'm looking at first and second points ideally here. I haven't just seen the Tracer Sombra. I've seen these echoes. I've seen more of maybe a hit scan here and there. We've seen some Ashe being played. Their door is open for more opportunities to try various DPS heroes if that is the route you would like to take. However, it honestly, from my opinion here, you gotta let me know what you think. I'm feeling like the mirror matchup, or at least something close to it, has got to be where these teams stick.
I think that's probably what's going to be the norm here. It is really hard to, I mean, we've seen it in Overwatch. We've seen teams try and play adaptations, but at the end of the day, this Winston, Tracer, Sombra, I mean, the Sombra hack just gives you so much utility, being able to just deny those abilities for a Winston. You know, if you could somehow get it on the Tracer, then the Tracer is just left out to dust and is going to get evaporated. So, and Tracer is always a mainstay. So any adaptation away from the Sombra, no other hero is going to provide you the value and utility that Sombra does.
You really just got to see that hero in play. We've seen some variation with like the Echo or the Reaper in that scenario, but you just got to keep the Sombra, please. It will be better for you. I don't expect Lethal to move away from the Sombra. If that happens, I am going to be pretty shocked, especially after how well that ended up working on Lijiang Tower. But I'm also not going to say anything until we're actually all in the game and we can see what's happening within these teams. They do have some options if a substitute would like to be made, but you look at these 5 or 10 players rather, and this is kind of their main roster. This is what they're sticking with, and you build up this comfort, this synergy within these players, especially with Afterlife themselves. You're going to want to keep it pretty consistent.
Yeah, so this is my big takeaway, Tiny. Both of these teams, when they played O3 Splash yesterday, they all went to Numbani. So I kind of have an idea of what
Really?
the teams are going to play. It is this echo variation. The
Yeah.
only other difference was on defense. Sometimes we would see the Ash coming out, but it looks like both teams are going to elect to go with this echo. Just being able to have that burst damage because these high grounds defensively are extremely hard to break through. So when you get into a situation where you're trying to break through, having the ability to get those sticky bombs and a quick focus beam kill has a lot of value.
Yeah, and this is where you're going to see the echo, especially when you want to get quick access to these high grounds. You get these large amounts of combos, and without a Sombra, there isn't really as much of a rush to get these eliminations down. There's not as much pressure within these players, but the battle between Lethal and Tap is going to be the one to keep an eye out for.
As we now see, as we see Amplify on this defense, as we see the dive already coming in, but a great anti-nade.
Beautiful bio nade coming in early from Buddy here. We were talking about how much they've been practicing these out. These angles aren't easy to hit at all, and especially when you have to hug the corner, the pressure onto Buddy is horrible to have to work with, and Lethal and Tap end up trading each other out at the end. Even Lethal's like, why you gap? Wow. All right, I see Lethal has the confidence that they're the better player, but hey, you ended up going down first here. Neither team has an Echo, but Afterlife has a Zera, and Amplify is no joke. They're going to have to go ahead and work with that moving forwards. At this point, I would say typically you can look for a recontest, but Afterlife was pretty much just allowed to walk right in there. Regardless of that, there wasn't exactly a strict defensive dive or even attempt from Amplify.
And I think the big reason was the positioning from their supports, Fixin and Medixer. They were just completely in a great position as that pulse bomb from Zera comes in, which is going to buy more space. But they were positioned perfectly to get away from the staging of Amplify while being able to maintain the sight lines on Rhino specifically, while he was able to hold down and maintain control of point, which allowed Lethal and Zera to do their own thing in the back lines.
And that plays such a big part into how quickly that fight went. And, you know, we saw what just happened there. You got another bio-nade setup from Fix. This is the second time that that has happened. And Amplify, there's nothing they can do about it. They lost their support lines, and suddenly you're looking at yourselves at essentially one fight here on second point Numbani, which a lot of us say doesn't exist in a lot of Overwatch games to begin with. But if you can start to close this one out quickly, it certainly might, especially with Amplify deciding to commit a lot of these ultimates here. They're taking that initiative, and Rhino is able, really just doesn't have the opportunity to do much without that sufficient support. It is a hefty investment, though, from the defense just to get a little bit more control back on this arm.
Yeah, to even commit the duplicate here is kind of a big deal for Amplify. You're not going to have that tool going into the next fight. You're really only looking at Primal and Rally, while Afterlife has 4 ults to work with here as Lethal dupes the Brig.
Duplicate onto the Brigida, you don't see this one too terribly much, but hey, I'm not against it by any means. I like the support duplicates that come out with all the utility and extra sustain that you got through the battle. It really helps players such as Zera here, who gets these extra armor packs. You can have that armor built up, and feel like that's just their way to overpower through Amplify here. They got a rally of their own, but they don't really have PGE or Tap with that damage. They're not getting that job done in the way that Lethal and Zera have been operating this entire game, leaving Doge with so much weight on his back to try to deadlift his team, keep that payload contested before somebody can manage to get a touch, which he can do. Buddy got that nano boost out onto the Winston itself, but payload is very important here, especially for Afterlife. They managed to get the pick off onto the Ana, but there doesn't seem to be much more of a fight coming out of Amplify after the final eliminations roll through. And look at this time bank that is out here, 4.5 minutes just to complete Numbani.
That was a great juggle from Rhino. You don't get the kill, but you're able to juggle the supports out in the open and allow your team to come and collapse on them. Tap divs Lethal once again, but Lethal's team is winning, and as you mentioned, what a dominant time bank. Both teams used a lot to commit to that fight, but the key is Afterlife gets to commit into this next fight. Give Rhino this nano, and you can allow that to build up to another Primal.
this is the key. This is definitely one of those nano boosts that is used to tempo this ultimate economy. If Vix gets this one out onto Rhino, who's ideally hunting for Buddy in the backline, and you're even gonna have a second nano boost. Lethal going again for the support ultimate, this time onto the Ana here, which that just offers so much utility. Not emphasizing much. I love these support duplicates here. Assuming Lethal can get that nano boost online, will be able to do so. Chucking in another one onto Rhino. They stacked nano boost. Now, generally, I haven't seen this before. Does it last longer? It does not seem like it does. But regardless of the fact, you had that extra stay power. Amplify had to back up so far that suddenly this payload is 3.5 meters from its completion, and you still have over 3 minutes to try to defend. And initiation needs to be taken down. The full pump had to come up big, but so does the one of Fix. Get the elimination onto the Ana in the back end. Afterlife, I don't expect them to continue this push here. They need to back out and reset and take the pulls away.
Yeah, this spawn advantage for Amplify is only going to be further amplified with the picks that you've gotten onto Afterlife. So a regroup is definitely in order. You get to come back. You're going to have 2 ultimates. Problem is Amplify has 3, but it doesn't matter. They found PGE. This is the opening.
But once again, wins out that duel with Lethal. Maybe a little assist coming in from Buddy there. That nano boost helping them win that little battle. And, you know, just like that, these DPS duels, those trades, I was a little worried about PGE and Tap being able to match Lethal and Zero, but here they are. They're doing it on the 3rd point in Nubani.
I'm just happy to see Amplify finally finding their footing, and they're gonna have this power rally to be able to use in this fight. Gives them all this extra sustain, but Zera is gonna be headhunting for another pulse bomb. Again, I talked about his attach rate is just ridiculous, so they got to keep an eye out for Zera.
Keep an eye out. That pulse bomb didn't come too much, but gladly another one will be pulled. It is Tracer after all, just a long cooldown. Here. I am more curious though in what happens with these support lines, because Rhino at this Primal Rage is great at splitting them apart, especially as nobody realistically available to defend Buddy, who now has this swing at Winston, chasing them down, baiting into a corner. Nobody seems to know where Buddy was so far from where the rest of the fight was happening. These are the isolations that Afterlife had done such a good job of making. They take these 1v1s or even 2v1s if they have confidence that they can win them out. There is the result, that reward they get. Minute 27 on Nubani with the full completion. The task for Amplify has been set.
The key also is getting above a minute on the clock. So, I mean, the goal for Afterlife, just stop Amplify. Take this 2-0 victory, move on to map 3. But if you can bring them to overtime, you put yourself in a position where you're in a win or draw situation. So that time bank is crucial for Afterlife. As we now move into this next phase where Afterlife is going to be defending, we saw Lethal playing that Ashe there at the end, and whenever Afterlife was on defense against O3 Splash, they also elected to put Lethal on the Ashe, so it would not surprise me if we see him going that direction, especially because you get to control that high ground, and it allows you to free fire and put pressure onto Tap, who's playing that Echo.
Lethal has been getting diffed slightly more in that Echo duel and just decided to go for the swap onto the Ashe. As much as that might hurt the ego on the inside, it's for the team in the end, and Lethal is a very good Ashe player. So pulling that out, adding that extra pressure onto Tap is just the thing you need to be able to do here. My only concern with this though, Ray, is that just adds another player that Amplify can now dive on with reasonable ease.
I mean, that is definitely the case. That was the way O3 Splash was able to break through this defense for Lethal, was they had to send their Tracer player and their Winston at the same time to go after Lethal on this high ground and just force him out. But it's a tough task to ask in general. O3 Splash was able to do it, but it actually took a lot of time for them to be able to finally do it.
That goes. I want to see Lethal kind of hang out with Meteor and Fix here to kind of stay away from these high ground, because look at that. Doge thought they had the window of opportunity. Lethal barely having that coach gun. Escaped towards that high ground, and woohoo, Doge playing with depth over on the opposite end. Getting these dive targets isn't going to be easy for Afterlife, because honestly, now it's more difficult to dive the supports because you have Lethal providing this extra angle of damage that you can't leap on. I love the strategy of playing on the low ground and then just leaping up to height after these cooldowns have been expended. It puts Doge so bad for has been bamboozled by it not once, but twice in a minute. Gone off the clock, and Afterlife finally got that first blow, winning that duel out with the immediate trade forward. It's like we're reading a storybook. We know exactly what's going to happen within these DPS duos. Tanks, though, can be up to a mystery, but the fact that Cap is alive and Winston is below half HP, yep, that is going to be a very dead, squished monkey that we're going to have to see on the next side round because Amplify have gotten on the objective.
But as it took them a second to really start gaining some percentage points on this objective. So I think if you're Afterlife, you have this chance to touch. Oh, the sleep though. That does it.
Sleep, buddy. That's it. That what a way to end it. Oh, bye, buddy. Well, at least we get close ones now, right? That's helpful.
Legitimately, Tiny, Zara was their touch on the point. So, Buddy being able to get that sleep basically secured them the point. So, shout outs to Buddy, as we mentioned, and working really hard to get better. And we're just seeing that in spades right now.
Oh, yeah. Buddy has just been a great piece to Amplify, really assisting in their setup here. And, giving Tap really work to take these duels against Lethal, who has been a major issue. And Tap didn't even get much out of the duplicate right now. Is taking this 1v1 off the side of through a zero, and I do not recommend running a free. So as an Echo, that is not going to go your way 9 times out of 10, and that was definitely one of those 9 times here for Amplify. The payload is still on the move though. You want to get this as far as you possibly can, draw those resources out of Afterlife so that you can take another fight, especially after already putting in 2 in a row.
Yeah, but Afterlife is just not taking that bait. They're just playing it very smart, very patient. Gonna come back with these 4 ultimates, and they're gonna be able to really apply some pressure onto Amplify.
Yep, this is Afterlife's fight to lose, honestly. This is all the cards are in their favor. Started to 0 pulse, but not gonna get the target that was desired. However, you still have Rhino just vibing on the high ground. Amplify taking time to consider their options. They don't want to peek that spot. They know where Lethal is kind of sitting and waiting for somebody to even just daring them to go on in. Thankfully, Tap has a nano boost. This is going to have him problem doing that whatsoever. Opts to go for the Brigida instead, though, and finds themselves with no cooldowns. If you're Tap, you needed to come up with something on that nano boost, but you went for probably the worst target you could have in that scenario, and now you're down a nano and an Echo, as well as another fight loss.
I agree with you to a point, Tiny, but I'm looking at this next fight. We're pretty much in an even scenario, but I like that Amplify is going to have this ability to give yourself the rally, give you that over health, and Afterlife just has, I mean, we have pulse bombs against each other, so Afterlife is going to have the disruption of the primal, but I think the rally is the more powerful ultimate coming into this next team fight.
This rally is so big, just between that stun ability, plus that little extra bit of armor. It just breaks every little tap point that you're looking for on those health pools, so Lethal doesn't get that same effectiveness that you'd like to, but Zero still does, has been consistently dominating PGE within this Tracer matchup and continues to do so the same. It can never just be one with this guy. It's like he knows whenever the spectator is on him, he's like, ooh, I gotta put in performance here.
That they do as we move into just 2 minutes on the clock. Amplify's got to get things going, but look at that chest of ultimates. They are in a great spot. Again, they just got to make sure they use these efficiently. You can't just dump all 5 ults, because I think if you win this fight, Afterlife still has a chance to come back and contest once again.
Yeah, even when you're just in the position that the payload's at, and Amplify, they want to be as conservative as they can with these resources, but they also need to understand that they need to do the job. That this needs to be the fight they win with all of their tools. You're not going to get another one of these with only 90 seconds remaining on that initial time bank here, so they got to find these targets, and it's on Lethal. What a bionade from Buddy to set that one up. Tap, though, slept up in the corner, has a duplicate to be able to stay alive if needed, and that is certainly the case. Sleep onto the nano brig. How much value did this guy get out of the Ana here? Even sticks with the elimination onto Fix as well. That just definitely is, I don't need the ambulance, you do. For the case of Amplify, they used all 5 ultimates here, but oh my goodness, did they need every single one to be able to squeak their way through second point.
I mentioned how they shouldn't dump all their ultimates into that fight because I said it's going to work. Afterlife will be able to recontest. But if you're going to use all 5 of them to secure the point, that I'm okay with. Because now you can come into this next fight, make any kind of swaps you need as Lethal had swapped over to that Widow just to look for a pick and find something in the end. You're going to go back to that more consistent output damage that the Ashe provides. But I think we're starting to see it peek its head a little bit. Tap on this Echo, getting a lot more value out of this hero than we are seeing from Lethal on the Ashe.
Lethal going back to the Ashe, and Tap was just shutting him down on that regard. So Amplify, they're at an advantage regardless of what DPS their Lethal has been on. Just throwing Nano onto Tap, you expect him to deliver, and there it is, completely makes up for that last utilization of the ultimate, all of the trust put into the flex DPS, and Tap is here to deliver on that request. Amplify rounded this last corner, and if they can get this with over a minute remaining, that would be absolutely huge. But Afterlife are trying to get out, and the body block here coming up big. Touch is available. How long is it going to be able to last, though? Rhino nearing this Primal Rage, as well as that rally online here that sustained. It's going to take a while, not going to be easy to chew through. If you're Amplify right now, you need to come up with some sort of big win condition, and it's got to be Tap with that duplicate hit coming up to stay alive, honestly replacing Doge after the fall of the Winston. If this drags on for long, Amplify need to close it out here. If they go down to an overtime rank and they get that completion for in a lose-draw scenario, and Skater Life, this is a fight they gotta win. They have all of the stall in the world. The tools just happens to fall within their favor, and of course you got players like Sarah, like Rhino, and of course Lethal on top of it, finally coming alive on the Ashe where their team needs the most.
Oh, as Doge even commits that Primal, I'm not sure about that, as they were trying to make some sort of hero play. They do get Rhino low, but they just cannot finish the deal. Lethal secures that team fight win, and 20 seconds left on the clock. It is looking dangerous for Amplify, as they're really only looking at a Nano Pulse Bomb when Afterlife has a Pulse Bob that provides so much stall on this point.
I liked it. Whether that was intentional or not, that was hilarious. But Amplify, regardless, need to be able to get the touch. That is step number 1. PG is able to get it, but it costs a lot of time and resources to get there before the Tracer can get a full re-engage. Amplify need to be able to withstand this battle. As soon as Lethal chucks that Bob, he instantly have a man advantage and he needs to replace Fix. Direct target prioritization from Tap, who's taken out not 1 but 2 players. The DPS has yet to be stopped. It takes a Bob. The only thing that can take down this player, PGE doing their best to keep Amplify in this fight, but the spawn advantage is heavily in favor of Afterlife right now. It's basically in sight, whereas Amplify have to walk so gosh dang far to get back. It's not practical for them to be able to get another contest regardless of the Wrecking Ball stall or not. This one is going to be put down to the dust, as Sarah and Rhino have said, no thanks Amplify, we're taking this 2-0. They want this even score record.
As I actually like some of the swaps we saw coming out from Afterlife. The Kiriko getting that, the ability to hit some headshots, especially on a Tracer who just has so much stall for Amplify to just find that headshot and get the kill. We saw that come through. And then Lethal being able to put down a lot of damage on that Bastion and just try and find a quick pick, because that's all you needed there if you're Afterlife. You're now up 2-0, and you have this ability, match point, to come out of week 1 at a 2-2 record. And for Afterlife, I think they would take that. They looked at their record, looked at their schedule coming in. I think they probably penciled in their first 2 games as losses, but to come into the next 2 and get W's, I think it gives them so much positive momentum heading into week 2.
Significant improvements and progress has been made by Afterlife thus far, but you know what? They're not just there yet, Ray. They still have to close out 1 more map in order to take that victory over their opponents and Amplify. But before we get there, we are going to head to a brief break to get everything reset and set up on our escort map, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few minutes. here we are once again, and actually for the very first time on a 0-2 matchup. We haven't seen any of these so far. It's always gone 1-1, 2-2, and thus forwards. All of these matches been pretty darn close, but right now, Afterlife, I gotta say, a hefty lead over where Amplify currently stands, and they're on the verge of receiving their 4th loss of the Contenders Summer Series, which is not a good way to start their day at all. And, this 2-0 trend isn't something that's just happening on our match either, Ray. It's like something's in the air today. That's just what it is.
Yeah, looks like Pirates actually ends up taking that victory over Worldwide 3-0 in a shocker. The Good Boys up 2-0 on Strix right now, who's been quite a dominant team so far. I mean, we saw them earlier on the stream take down Dragon Dance 3-1. So, I mean, shout outs to Good Boys there. So, but focusing a little bit back onto the game that we're focused on, we have our next map. It was Amplify's pick. They're going to Watchpoint Gibraltar, which to me is a little curious because Lethal has been loving playing that hit scan. Watchpoint Gibraltar just continues to ask you, play Ashe here, play Ashe. So much high ground for you to control. And I mean, it's going to be Winston and Ashe composition. And that's what Afterlife has been thriving on.
I wonder what is Tap gonna do here. Honestly, I mean, any hero we've seen so far, you could try to pull out the Sombra, add some pressure onto Lethal, but
so I can pretty much, in general, watching Amplify, between Tap and PGE, they're pretty flexible on who plays the Tracer. So I think PGE is going to play this Ashe, and my guess is Tap is going to go over to the Tracer to match up against Zera, and we'll see how that goes. But I want to see this Lethal versus PGE. Lethal looking to play this Widowmaker, and we've seen on maps like Circuit Royale just how deadly Lethal can be. But like I mentioned with Ashe, Overtime has more output of damage, so Lethal's got to find these kills very quickly.
On Widowmaker, which will be favored when you're playing against an Ashe just because you have this better range. And even with a slight nerfs here, you're still going to get these one taps, whereas an Ashe is certainly going to be far from that. And it's going to be a lot about that positioning. Where are you stalling this from? Which angles are you taking? Can you actually manage to stay alive against this consistent pressure? Because you know very well that Tap is going to be just dead zone on finding that Widowmaker. That is their job. Putting pressure onto Fix and getting Lethal out of the picture, or at least distracted for long enough before Zera strikes. The exact same thing for PGE and Tap, falling shortly after with the Lethal. Both the Tracers have gotten their jobs done. Now, they need to figure out the duel with each other. This has gone the way of Zera so far, but let's see whether Tap can manage to keep up. This high ground being contested by Amplify here. They're managing to take that away with no problems whatsoever with the snipers out of the picture.
Yeah, and that is the key to Amplify bringing this point home, is having this high ground control, and they've already found Zera, which takes away so much pressure from PGE, so he's just going to be able to free fire onto the backs of Afterlife.
Oh, Bionade chucked in from Buddy! How many of these have we seen today, Ray? This guy is ridiculous for setting up Doge and Tap for these eliminations. I mean, he's getting all of these weird nooks and crannies. This is the grind, the hours, the time you put in on Ana, and seriously, that play alone just resulted in a speed run of first point Gibraltar.
Yeah, Buddy is crazy with it. But the second point, which I like seeing from Amplify, is they're taking this spaceship away from Afterlife, which is such the key defensive position to be holding. And they're just like, nope, no sir, you do not get to hang out here today. This is where we're going to take and hold.
They're playing so far up there. It's actually the Winston on the payload for once, which is totally fine to be able to work with. The only thing is that Rhino is easily going to be able to dislodge them with that Primal Rage, even get the elimination onto Power Boost, which is actually really insane for Rhino, knowing the experience, the prowess they have on this Winston player. It got the space necessary to allow Zera to safely feel like that they can enter the battle. And even better for Lethal is, moving over to the Ashe because he's not as afraid of going down to a dive. I mean, I say that as you're continuously being harassed by a Winston through the spaceship, and this is something that Amplify has done so well, right? I want to point this out. Look at the payload pressure here. We've had, maybe one fight, and the payload's basically already there just because of the payload pressure.
But that was nice awareness from Lethal to see the recall coming out from Tap and knowing exactly where he was going to be. Gets him with a dynamite, and that was a big reason why he gets focused down there. Is Doge now forced to pop the Primal.
Primal's already out, and Doge isn't having a whole lot of luck with it. Has to scoop back in to the Mega Health Pack room to receive a couple healing shots from Power Boost and Buddy. Which Power Boost does have the rally online here. Be a great way to open up this battle, especially with that Bobbert in the back line. It's the duel of the Bobs, the Wild West out here. Who is gonna win? Afterlife is looking low. Lethal's Bob is falling lower and lower. No, PGE is the victor of the standoff, and at the very end, getting the head of Lethal on top of it. What a great way for Afterlife to go ahead, or excuse me, for Amplify to go ahead and take the second point. Over 4 minutes on the clock heading onto this map. I can see why Amplify wanted to go to this point. They have looked so gosh darn good here.
Yeah, I mean, Tap on this Tracer has like breathed new life into Amplify, and it allows PGE to just pop off on this hit scan. So this, I think, going forward, if you're Amplify, even if you end up losing this series, I think you have definitely spotted compositions that you feel very comfortable in. And I think going forward, especially on a map like Numbani, you think about doing that again. Put PGE on this Ashe and put Tap on the Tracer.
Great look from them, and a lot of it goes along to what Doge has been able to do as well. Look where the Winston's been positioning himself. Really isolating on Lethal there. So it makes PG a lot of less pressure on PGE here. Then kind of frees him up to just put these chip shots either into Rhino or find these little supports that kind of chill in the backline, hide away from the sight line. And when you look at their point there, this one would be more difficult if you didn't have the nano boost from Buddy. Great way to get up to that height, eliminate that Ashe player who has just been having a hard time. Lethal has not been allowed to live all game. Neither has Zira. PGE has just hit another level so far this game, and Amplify, they are continuing their absolute domination of a run to Watch Point Gibraltar. I mean, this map is essentially theirs. 3 minutes still to go here, and they don't even need to close it out now. Rhino get a nice elimination onto that Ashe, finally putting an end to the PGE's reign of terror here and forcing a reset.
As we see Lethal now swapping over to this Cassidy, trying to hope that these magnetic grenades, especially with the new hindered effect, that you can really put an end to the ability for Doge to easily get in and out with these dives. But as you mentioned, PGE has just been untouched. I feel like if you're Afterlife, I mean, you're on double hit scan now, so how do you even effectively go after PGE? Because Rhino's not going to be able to do this alone.
You can't just give Rhino all of the responsibility. Sure, you can distract PGE for a while, but eventually the peel from Amplify is going to come in, and if Rhino doesn't have that backup that we've seen from Zero for so long, this is going to be a problem. So these hit scan players gotta perform, and you're just not going to do it when Doge and Tap are on the same wavelength here. You have a bob out from PGE on top of it. I mean, they're looking a little lost out here, Ray. They made all of these last second swaps as an attempt to move on through, but none of them came to any fruition, and the result is a hefty minute 46 time bank for Amplify to work with.
They are looking so good right now, and they have just found the composition that has made everything just possible for them. Like we mentioned, Tap on this Tracer has been incredible. It's just making Medixers and Fix's jobs that much more difficult. And then if you're completely distracting these supports, it makes Rhino's job harder because they can't continuously pump heals because they're dealing with a Tracer in their back line. And because of all this distraction, as we mentioned, PGE is just untouched, unfazed. Afterlife has to find an answer to getting after PGE.
And so far, it can't just be Rhino. We've talked about it enough that you would think that Lethal and Zero here, I want to see more of that coordination. They even ended up switching those heroes, showing a little bit of flexibility on their own, which of course can change within this attack here. But you can't let PGE continue this crazy reign of terror that they've been on the high ground, especially on the defense here. This is going to be even more challenging for Amplify or for Afterlife to even attempt to contest here. If Lethal isn't winning out these 1v1s, then you need to add other layers onto this to actually counter it out. And it's crazy to think how these previous two maps have gone and lead us to what a stump of this Gibraltar map has been so far.
As we see Rhino going onto the Roadhog looking for a cheeky pick. Oh, they are able to find it. I kind of like that set play because they know that's where you're going to hold defensively. I actually don't think that's a bad idea.
No, Not at all. I really do like that. Even Power versus like normal, expected. I do like the addition of the life mover onto that as well. And you know, it gives yourself up there. You know where the opponents are holding, and Zero can take advantage of that. I like the Hanzo coming out. You have the increased tip damage. You have this one-shot potential, and this is the reason that its projectile here has been so incredibly strong as of late. If you're able to land these shots from long range, then you can get so much value of having the archer on your squad.
And that's the interesting little wrinkle now as Lethal is playing the Tracer. So we're going to see Lethal versus Tap. New players entering the Tracer lobby right now, but Lethal is actually known for his Tracer and his hit scan. So if you're Amplify, boy, look out.
You need to be super careful if you're Amplify right now. Lethal is looking hot on the Tracer. I will chase you down. You aren't watching all of your angles here, buddy. Beautiful Bionade thrown in. We've seen them from a lot more from Buddy, but Fix trying to get in on the action as well, and that's all Afterlife need to get this fight. That early initiation from their support players to really clean it up.
And these swaps seem to be what was needed for Afterlife. As you mentioned, I mean, Amplify sped run this, and Afterlife did the exact same thing right on the back of these DPS swaps, liking the Hanzo, as you mentioned, and Lethal on this Tracer is just, it's just something else.
It really is. You're working with all these flexible players. I mean, Lethal known for their Tracer, the Ashe as well, but if you need to switch things around, Afterlife's shown that they have the adaptability to change things up when necessary. They do, however, end up losing Zera here on their approach to the high ground, and you know, they don't have control of the spaceship, which is why Amplify was able to steamroll through the second objective. So Afterlife, their task is a tad bit more challenging, but can be made easier with this Primal Rage coming out for them, but they're gonna hold on to it, wait for these ultimates to come out on the other end, because Meteor has to stay alive to validate even attempting another push on this fight as the payload continues to progress on forwards here. Nano Boost now onto Doge. Spots out Fix in the corner, wants to go for it, but scared of the sleep dart, manages to dodge and weave. What an expert little bubble mechanic that we got to see showcased from Doge here. Shows the true experience of that player, and Afterlife, while they got the payload close, didn't quite hit the point.
But you do get it pretty in range for if you win this next team fight, it's pretty much over. And you forced out pretty much all the ultimates of Amplify. They're just looking at a rally now. So if you're Afterlife, you get to come in here, disrupt them off of the spaceship because you have the primal to be able to do this now. And then you have dragons where you can use them to isolate a player and just all sync up and take them out.
Quick, but that Bionade is going to hold a lot of progress. Fix it, Meteor hanging on to life, but not for long. That is a devastating combo with the Dynamite and the Bionade. Buddy has been on top of this. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. Of the amount of fights Amplify has won just off the back of a beautiful play from that on.
I definitely agree with you there, as we see Doge just trying to find that thick on the Rhino, who's so low, but again, Afterlife's still going to have the ult advantage coming in this fight because they didn't even commit a single ultimate to that fight. They just got picked off too early because, as you mentioned, of that devastating combination of the Dynamite and the Anti-Nade. Again, never mind.
What?
I was going to say you use the Primal, but you got PGE.
Nope, you got PGE. That's exactly the target you wanted to force out. And Doge, I don't think wanted to use that Primal Rage there. Wanted to hold on, but realized you can't wait any longer. Once you're down your DPS and 71 HP to spare, no cooldowns or LOS to really work with, and with how close the payload is, you gotta get that Winston healed up, and you gotta do it fast. Everything coming out for Afterlife. They can smell the victory, they can smell that second checkpoint coming their way, but PGE has made it back into the fight off in that high ground and are able to come back in, but look at all of those desperation ultimates that had to be pulled out of Amplify at the end.
Yeah, but that was absolute disaster because Afterlife used 4 ultimates of their own. So we come in as we're getting under 2 minutes on the clock. Zera now going over to the Sombra. And my only problem here is Sombra Tracer, they're gonna have a hard time controlling this high ground together, trying to take this away from PGE. So you're really relying on Rhino to do a lot of this heavy lifting.
No, Zeros right here needs to be the one to help take this space, be the way in, and kind of work with this. We haven't seen Zero on the Sombra as of now. These bulls have been swapped up a little bit. Can they prove that they have the same little level of coordination that did they back on Lijiang Tower? Time is beginning to run thin here, and Rhino needs to be making a move now. Find some sort of way in. The payload has been the spot, but Bob baited out. He just got to dish it, leave it for now, and you're going to want to leave it for a little longer. Lethal has been eliminated from this fight specifically, and with Doge pressuring this small choke point that Afterlife decided to put themselves up here, there's nowhere for them realistically to move or even escape. Their background has been blocked off, and if they get staggered here now, Ray, this is going to be a big problem moving on forwards for them. Eventually, the peel back is forced due to the payload being pressured, but Afterlife, they don't have any sign in.
It's just so tough, as now you're gonna force Zera out of that battle, and Medixer is going down. This is just getting worse and worse for Afterlife as they continue to try and commit to this fight. They just need to regroup. 30 seconds left on the clock, Tiny.
No, you just can't stagger here. Just stop going in. Turn around. You can do this. The nano boost is going to be your lifeline in this fight. Assuming Cap doesn't get much done with that pulse bomb, throw that nano onto Rhino. You get yourself to that payload. You guarantee a touch, but you're gonna need a lot more than that to be able to pull it through. I need to see Zero come up with that manual hack and the collapse to come in. Afterlife, we know you are capable of it, but now is the time, the true test of it all here. 5 more seconds remaining, and Fix isn't in a good position at all with the sight line onto this payload. They can't get that nano boost onto Rhino. Under disaster right now, and it's all caused by Doge forcing these players back. The positioning that was denied, that LOS couldn't happen, and this is going to be Amplify coming back. They are not done fighting yet. We're at a 2-1.
Yeah, I think Lethal knew that was over. He kind of stopped moving at the end of that fight. Was just like, yeah, this is a GG's, move on to the next map. But do I smell a reverse sweep coming in, Tiny? That's what I might be smelling here if I'm Amplify. I mean, to be down 2-0, your back's against the wall, to come up with this map pick and then absolutely dominate is just a huge boost of confidence for a team who was facing down an 0-4 record. So I feel like this is the breath of fresh air they needed, and they have this ability to now take a deep breath. All right, we got that map, and now let's just carry this momentum through and take this victory.
Yeah, I guarantee you that after that they attempted to go to that map 5, Amplify, they made it there, but they were denied, and here they are again. They're facing the same situation. If they want to take this series, you gotta win the next 2 maps in a row, and that is never an easy task to accomplish, especially when you look at the map choice. It's no longer in your favor. When you go to push, and you don't have that option anymore. You look at what those maps are, Ray, and honestly, I start to go back to that same strategy that absolutely destroyed Amplify on Lijiang Tower.
I definitely agree with you to a point, but it's just like, where do you want to take this? Do you go to New Queen Street? Both these teams actually played 0-3 Splash on New Queen Street, and this is the ironic thing. Both teams were actually up on 0-3 Splash 2-1, and then 0-3 Splash took them both to New Queen Street, and they both lost there. So I'm not sure if the scars of 0-3 Splash past is going to work its magic in here. I mean, I do think in general, talking with players and in general, the consensus is Esperanza's tends to be one of the more favored push maps from players.
Yeah, that I feel like out of all of the push maps, if you go down early, you have the best chance of making a comeback. It's not like Coliseo, where that map is unforgiving. If you lose that checkpoint, you're in so much trouble for the rest of those maps. Those high grounds are brutal on that side. The same thing can kind of be said about New Queen Street. You spend a lot of time fighting in this mid phase, and even if you get close to that second half of the map, it's just that positioning that you have access to when you're on the losing side that makes these spaces so difficult to work with, where as Esperanza, you could arguably say that architecture doesn't favor that losing side nearly as much, and you have the greater opportunity for a turnaround.
As we do have that map pick coming in from Afterlife, and we pretty much had that in our back pockets. We kind of knew it is going to be Esperanza. So, I mean, there's no surprises here. I think everyone knows that this map really comes down to 2 compositions, and really it's just one. But it's Winston and Ramattra compositions, but really it's Winston. It's going to be that Winston, it's going to be that Tracer, it's going to be that Sombra. And I mean, when they're in the mirror matchup for this, when Lethal is on that Sombra and Zera's on that Tracer, as you mentioned on Lijiang Tower, that is where Afterlife found their life.
This is what it really was. What was on this map, and you know they've got to, the momentum was gotten from that very point. So the fact that Afterlife was able to start on a strong note, they went to map number 2, were able to do the same thing. They can't let a little stumble. They can't let this little hop in the road here hurt them from winning this other map. They want that 2-2 just as badly as anybody else. Like we said countless times, they are the dark horse in this matchup, and they didn't expect to win those first couple of games that they had. Very tough opponents, but as they were able to move on forwards, you're gaining this confidence. You're like, all right, we can start to do this. These pieces, they're falling into place, and once those gears, they start turning in your brain, then you can make the snowball into something that is even greater. But this is really going to be the test of it here. You've gone down. Can you pick yourselves back up?
And like we mentioned, still match point for Afterlife. So Amplify still has to, I mean, their backs are still against the walls. You may have that breathing room, feel good. You got a map under your belt, but you cannot afford to relax, as we're just trying to get the readies from the teams before we get you guys in there. Afterlife, again, I think coming into this map, especially since they picked it, they know that they can force this Tracer Sombra on this map, and they're just far superior at it.
Just gonna force it, and you have the confidence. If you get Lethal on it this time instead of Zera, I mean, Zera is incredible at the Tracer, so is Lethal, but I mean, you look at that behind the Sombra, I just want to see that again. We didn't see that level of synchronization on any other points during this series. So if you can get yourselves back on that home ground that you are so comfortable with, you can work with, and then suddenly Amplify are going to find themselves playing their opponent's game. I do think that Esperanza can offer a little bit of an opportunity to be flexible, but at the same time, I do believe they're just better off just sticking to this Sombra Tracer that we've seen so many teams run consistently. That utility has been great, but hopefully they've improved something since Lijiang Tower, that they're able to learn from it, because that was not a pretty map for them, and makes me a little nervous for their future within this series.
I could not agree with you more. As we see in the chat, one of the coaches is like, I'm going to give a get amazed style speech. One of the players is like, bored of the speech, we're ready. Oh, pretty funny coming from these players. It's just nice to showcase some of these personalities that the players have.
It is. I mean, you got all of these amazing talents. We talk about how good they are, but then behind the scenes, I mean, they're still people, right? They're still people. They're a bunch of fun, and the fact that they're able to kind of get this little showcase of their personalities out there is a whole other layer, and it makes it very enjoyable to kind of follow a lot of these storylines along the way. And speaking of storylines, this one might come to an end here. Afterlife back on their bread and butter. Can they take it to Amplify?
As no surprises here, it is the Tracer and the Sombra. Tap on that Tracer, PGE on that Sombra. Is PGE going to be able to keep up with Lethal? As I mentioned, one of his strong suits is he's so quick to farming up this EMP.
This EMP just comes so quick, and you know, a lot of that has to do with the positioning of translocator. Lethal was such a smart Sombra player. I want to learn from this guy, honestly. I've one-tricked Sombra to Masters, and the way that this guy plays, he just has the talent to carry his team, farm up these EMPs, these large abilities, and force the space. I mean, Amplify have already taken that back foot over to the high ground much quicker. Rhino, though, takes a heck hit of damage. They do a little bit of backup of their own, but thankfully Fix and Meteor aren't far behind. Keep their tank in the battle, and you can look at the ult percentages right now, Ray, and that just kind of tells you the direction this has been going. Cap has been doing a lot of work here on the Tracer, already nearing a pulse bomb, and that is just the tool that you would like to see. For the first final blow of the game, gets the stick onto Rhino, who's getting healed up, and just barely. The collapse yet to come in from Afterlife after those abilities have been utilized. Afterlife, they know all of those cooldowns are out. They're going in themselves. Zera, nice stick. The first elimination of this map, a minute and a half in. The classic push play style here, but that's all Afterlife need to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, but that was crazy by both teams. Were patient, built up to their ultimates, knew what their win condition was. Both stuck the Winstons. Unfortunately, Zera was in a far better position. They forced Doge to jump back because he was so low, and Zera took that ability, used 2 of his blinks to get in, and then was able to stick him, and they could not get him to high health fast enough.
That's the really tricky part with the Winston is you take so much damage and you're a big moving target that can't deal that same amount of damage. So you need these things to happen very quickly here. And EMP, speaking of quick, came out from Lethal so fast that Amplify didn't even have the chance to relax. You saw PGE there kind of searching for that opportunity, but never got the chance.
Yeah, but that was Zera being extremely smart. Tiny was kind of spy checking, looking around for that Sombra. Knew this was going to be a battle. The EMPs, they needed to suss out PGE. They did that, and that allowed Lethal to just get that free EMP, and now they get the first spawn point, first cap of the point, which is huge on these push maps.
Oh yeah, this is an amazing start for Alpha to be able to work with. They have the EMP to work against, but Zera just destroying Tap in the backline, who I think was looking for a spawn camp onto Fix there. So you already got the Tracer out of the fight. Does PGE didn't even want to commit that EMP here, especially with that pressure being applied. Look at that Doge hanging on to dear life here. Eventually that EMP is pulled out. Get the 2 DPS to be expected, getting the sufficient value that you would like with that ultimate, but Afterlife were very well disciplined about what they ended up using, which was nothing.
Couldn't agree with you more, but you got to get the ball rolling if you're Amplify. So I would definitely be okay if they come in here and they start committing significant amount of ultimates, because they got to start getting some percentage on this point, because Afterlife, as you mentioned, comes back, has so many to commit, and Lethal's already almost at another EMP. So it's looking not great for Amplify, as at least they're taking control of this high ground. That's going to be the key, is not letting Afterlife just take this, as Zera is going to try and apply some pressure onto these supports.
Yep, Zera already doing what Zera does best. It is just another power boost and Buddy as well. Pulse Pump went wide, but that is a-okay. The robot has halted for the time being. Afterlife were able to kind of split them up. There's so many different little skirmishes going on between the Tracers, the Sombras, this Winston on the high ground. Rhino spots out the supports. Meter does get the final blow, and with that Ana out of the fight, Amplify, they wanted to come out, they wanted to win this battle, but like I said, it was just the ultimates were not in favor. They didn't have that same sort of toolbox to pull from, and they even end up committing the primal into this. I really don't know about that one, Ray.
Yeah, I feel like if you're Amplify, you either try and get out of there or just die. Being able to take away that ability to disrupt in this next fight is going to be tough, especially when Lethal has this EMP, because you could have used that primal to just try and sustain yourself through this EMP if you were Doge.
They got the EMP, you know it's gonna come out big. There it is, on to the supports. Immediate follow-up from Rhino. I'm saying the same thing over and over again, because Afterlife, it doesn't buy the book every time, and it works out. They follow that same path and in such a great way, and Amplify, there's nothing they can even do but react. All they can do is try to get back to spawn and come back to 5 as quick as possible.
Lethal is just so good. I mean, bringing in all his experience he has, it's a big reason. I mean, I'm sure he brings a lot of leadership qualities from Overwatch League, and like I said, he's just such a talented player. As PGE now pops the EMP.
Yep, PGE, EMPs traded back out once again. Support line has disappeared from the base of Afterlife gonna go get that reset, but the nice thing about getting this checkpoint, guess what, right? They're taking another fight at this mid spawn, and Zera even managed to stagger out both supports of their own, of Amplify.
Yeah, so if you're Amplify, I mean, you can definitely push this bot, but you cannot afford to take any kind of fight here in the midway. You gotta wait for your respawns to come in, and they're not even gonna be able to get the bot across that neutral point to take away the forward spawns.
No, and this is a great point for Afterlife to take that fight. You're looking at another pulse bomb from Zera, that nano from Vix, and Amplify, they used so much in that last fight just to regain the control, and they're so close to losing it again. This is the brutal part. You take one step forward. For Afterlife, it's 2 steps back that Amplify need to try to accomplish, and they're doing it with the initiation. Vix didn't get that nano boost out first. Afterlife, I'm so used to seeing them being the ones to go in and make the decisive move, control the tempo, but the one time they don't, Amplify has the advantage, which means Zero has to be the one to carry, which they did by taking both supports out of the equation. And Amplify, they're still in control. Those forward spawns, Ray, were never unchecked.
Exactly, and that's the key to Zara being able to find those 2 picks early in the fight. I mean, you do take out Rhino, which basically at this point means Afterlife has to all just get out of dodge, reset, wait for Rhino to get back. But as you mentioned, has not even hit the midpoint yet, so Rhino's going to be back very quickly.
I would have liked to see Zara kind of play for their life there, but if you're lucky, you're going to go ahead and get those forward spawns anyways and have all of your players back. I mean, look at this, there's still an EMP.
Yeah, it is looking rough in these waters, but Fix is down. This is Amplify's opportunity.
Amplify are taking a prime opportunity here. They just got their first Meteor, and Fix didn't have time to set themselves up with Rhino, and this is what I'm talking about. If Amplify know what they're doing, they can get this high ground, Ray, then they're bound to make progress.
And look at this, Tiny. 4 ultimates for Amplify to continue to try and build this comeback. They are 30 meters shy of, you know, bringing back what was looking so bad. They have the PGE EMP.
EMP did get canceled on the side of Amplify, but that doesn't even seem to matter. PGE still managed to do the necessary damage out on the field that Afterlife, they don't have the pieces left. They were looking so darn good, Ray, and here they are on the back foot. PGE and Tap have just hit another level as Afterlife have been staggering. They can't keep Meteor and Fix alive because the Tracer, the Sombra, they're in their spawn. You can't get the setup you want, and therefore you can't take these fights, and Tap isn't gonna let it happen.
Yeah, as Meadixer is just continuing to get targeted down one by one. They know the Brig is the one they have to go after, and they keep doing it once again.
Oh, they're still going. Afterlife, just stop, please. You're hurting yourselves in the wrong one. 90 seconds is what you have to walk this payload all the way down. You had an advantage. It is lost. You need to regroup and use what you got.
Yeah, and they're not forcing enough ultimates out of Amplify to justify them, you know, continuing to stagger these fights. As Zero was debating whether to swap over the Sojourn, but he's going to decide that the Tracer is the better way to go. As Lethal's found the Brig. There we go. There we go. That's what Afterlife's looking for.
Lethal just had to get cooking again, and there it is. You're getting your Sombra back on pace, but what PGE is winning that race to the EMP, so when all is said and done, even if Amplify go down here, Ray, they're not in a terrible position to keep moving forward. It's only a minute left for Afterlife and multiple engagements that they're going to have to win in order to get that cultural meters to advantage.
As Meadixer is going to have to be in a prime position and just have a good situation and feeling of when they think that EMP's coming and try and pop that rally early to provide that over health, or else it's going to be looking really bad for Afterlife, who were in complete control and it's just been slipping through their fingers.
This is their pick. This is what they were supposed to win, and it's not working out for them. Afterlife, they're scrambling, and they're not going to find an answer. EMP out for PGE, sitting, hunting, waiting. Supports are eliminated. Oh, no. Afterlife, worst case scenario right here. They have 4 ultimates in the bank. They have to come out, and you only can use 3. All that's left is that EMP from Lethal has been so successful so far, and if you want a good Lethal EMP, now is the time to make that happen, but you need to be getting yourself on the pail, grab that contest. You're not going to have Zero to do it. The EMP is out, but too little, too late. The follow-up is gone. Amplify, Ray. They have done it. We are going all the way to a map number 5.
Wow, I smelt it in the air, Tiny, and this is insane. I just feel so blessed as a caster, Tiny. This week, I've had the opportunity to cast 4 of these Contenders games, and 3 out of 4 of them have gone 5, and the other one went 4. Just the amount of competition we're seeing between all of these teams feels like it's at an unprecedented level. Like, obviously we have teams that are struggling, like Afterlife, who haven't, Amplify, who haven't gotten the win yet, but they are bringing these teams to the edge and to the brink. There's just not a team who's running through these lobbies and curb stomping everyone.
No, absolutely not. Like, I mean, you can look at the record board at all, right? You can look at that and you'll see, oh, we have some teams that are 3-0. Oh, you see down here that we have Amplified at 0-3. But this isn't the case. This is now the 3rd match that Amplified has managed to push to 5 maps, and They gotta break the curse. They gotta break this 5th map curse right here and right now, Ray. They are so close to grabbing this reverse sweep. If you let it slip through your fingers now, that is just so demoralizing for a team that you're making such a strong comeback, a great case for yourselves here, that this final control has to be the telltale sign of where this is gonna go. And, you know, I think we all just need some time to process what craziness has just happened out here. And before we hit to map number 5, we're gonna head to another brief break, but make sure you're back for this one, because after these next couple minutes, we are gonna see who comes out on top of the Amplified versus Afterlife matchup. Map 5 is upon us. What better way to close out the night than with a banger of a matchup between these two teams, right?
I couldn't agree more. Afterlife came out swinging, taking that 2-0 lead, and now Amplify has that reverse sweep set in their eyes. Have been to so many map 5s throughout the first 2 days that they are ready to break this curse. But Amplify has also been in a similar situation. They have been through a lot of map 5s as well. This is also their 3rd map 5. But they have broken the curse. This is Amplify's time. Hopefully they can make something happen. But we have to have a staging ground for where this all comes to an end. And we have the map pick in from Afterlife, and we are going to Antarctic Peninsula.
This is a map that is incredibly intriguing, especially when you think about what is a valid strategy. There tends to be two, but one has always been more than the other. This Ramatra brawl, particularly when I think of it, is on Icebreaker. It's just so much better to play these close range battles. You're not doing the Winston. This is a complete change of pace. We haven't seen that yet in this series, and with it being Afterlife's pick, this tells me that this is something they want to try to pull out and run towards their top strength, or maybe they just keep doing the same thing that they've been doing.
Which would be kind of a shocker to me as we're heading into Icebreaker, which is known for its Ramatra play, especially with Amplify, who's basically playing a composition that's going to make Rhino's job so tough. You'd have to deal with Tap, who's on this Mei, freezing you. PGE has these shotguns that is just such a troublesome nuisance to a Winston player. So Rhino's going to have to be very careful about where he positions himself to not get isolated by these DPS players.
Very skilled Winston player, but even the best are going to be tested against a opposition such as this. I mean, nobody is going to play nicely into the Gorilla Scientist out here. And Afterlife, they're going to struggle to get positioning because of it, and they're going to struggle to keep their health bars up because they don't have fixed tap the head of the Autumn player. So this is already not looking like a great start for Afterlife. We can't say the true test of that composition because Amplify got lucky with the first elimination.
I mean, I agree to a point, but I still think Ramatra on this more close quarter style map is just the better way to go about it. I mean, there's just not a key target to really go after and hack and try and dive. Moira and Lucio are super just dodgy and able to avoid things, and then Mei and Reaper just have the ability to sustain themselves for too long in the fight to where the hack's going to wear off, and then you're able to have your cooldowns.
Fight that is going to go on and on and on forever, and Amplify, since they have this greater point presence, it's just going to go into their favor. What a boom from Power Boost straight into Tap's sights, and they can just keep on rushing forward. They want to stagger Afterlife out.
I think at some point you might need to reassess if you're Afterlife. They might give it another push, especially since they're coming up on these DPS ultimates. That's the thing, is this Tracer Stormer is going to be able to build up to ultimates much faster. But, I mean, you're trading that out for over half of the percentage on this point already for Amplify.
Again, if you don't win this fight, Afterlife, then something's got to change. So make your point now. If you're very confident in this EMP and Pulse Bomb, which I believe the EMP can work out here, then awesome. You need to do it, and you need to catch Power Boost when that goes off. And actually, it's all 5 members. Immediately, Buddy is dealt with. That sound barrier is online. Actually ends up getting utilized there despite being down 2. I would have questioned that if it wasn't for the resurgence coming in, compensating for the loss of healing, and Amplify are on the brink of turning this one around if that nano boost wasn't chucked in towards the tail end of it. But that was basically all the main ideas Afterlife had to work with.
Yeah, and that was 84% you gained, and Amplify only used that sound barrier, Tiny. They're coming back with such power for ultimates, with really only one fight needing to win. This composition against this Ramatra is just not it, Tiny. There's just too much damage for Rhino to deal with.
You just can't keep this up. I mean, if you can continue to win these fights, fine, but you're putting yourself at a disadvantage here. Amplify just have all the tools. All they're doing is waiting for the opportunity to just collapse on somebody. In this case, it's Vix. You can't escape a Ramatra who's on your tail, and suddenly Afterlife, they're on the verge of crumbling here. 4 ults, actually 3, that they have to fight the face of, and none of them are going to play nicely, except for Tap and PGE get absolutely no value from either of those ultimates. It's got to be Doge from here on out. The zoning ultimate that you get from that annihilation. Nobody wants to be close, but guess what? You don't have a choice if a Ramatra is just going to stomp and march through you. Afterlife, we're in final fight, and they got to make those swaps.
Yeah, and they're losing their tracers, so they have to have Rhino go over the ball to be able to touch in time. Lethal has built up to this EMP, and you forced everything out of Amplify, so you might have this window of opportunity if you're Afterlife.
They're going to have it, but this EMP didn't go off! Buddy ended up picking off Lethal! No way! Afterlife, a critical mistake, worst case scenario that could happen for them in this battle right now. Amplify, they're pretty much set. If they can close out, get all these players away before Lethal returns, then they can go ahead and say, Labs is ours. They need to win one more, and PGE is going to make sure that that is the case. Voltron from Zera, not timed just correctly enough. EMP is out. Can Zera and Lethal be the heroes for their team? They managed to pick up 2. Zera being a one-man army here. Couple of assists coming in from the Sombra. The pressure is immense. The supports aren't present, but PGE is fighting it together with the Lucio players. Soundbeard is online almost, but Lethal takes it down. There's no way that Afterlife mount the comeback here, Ray. No shot.
There's no shot, but it did happen, Tiny. And that was just clutch plays from Zeri and Lethal, just stalling and stalling and stalling and not allowing Amplify to get those picks so easily. It's so hard to focus down this composition that Afterlife has played. But Amplify comes back. Look at the ultimates in their bank, Tiny. It's just a matter of time, it feels like. But this is Final Fight territory.
Like, it's like you know what's gonna happen here. The initiation, after like they need to get a quick pick, but you just don't have that with that insane healing that you have with the Coalescence on the field and all of the damage. You got bolts, yes, ultimates. This is just not looking good for Afterlife right now. If Lethal gets another EMP, I would say maybe, but you don't have fix, and all of the support is off of your side. Point flip back over. Amplify are in control. Someone needs to get the touch. Barely managed to do so. Rhino out with the minefield. Lethal EMP, but it's a miss. Nobody ends up getting hit with that ultimate, and that right there was Afterlife's last straw, their last lifeline to be able to work with here. Fortune on Forge with this annihilation might as well be the nail in the coffin for this point. No one else on Afterlife is going to have the opportunity to trust right now. Amplify, they are one step closer to completing that reverse sweep.
Ooh, Amplify can taste that first victory on the season. It is right there. They got to carry this momentum forward. I think this RNG map pool, what we're going to get, okay, we get sub-levels, which to me is going to favor this Winston composition that Afterlife has wanted to play. So this is where things could get spicy. If Afterlife is able to play this composition that they're so fond of, especially Lethal is going to have this ability to play the hit scan, he's just going to have to be very careful of, wow, so Amplify is going to match them. Again, they're just going to be careful. They got to protect Lethal and not allow PGE and Tap to pressure him on that high ground.
I'm just not sure about the Ash pick here. I'm really not sure about it. If Lethal isn't protected, it's just a free pick for so many players right now. You're asking for Lethal to get an elimination, and it takes focus away from Rhino, who's at the mercy of these hacks. That even that damage amp is brutal for any tank player that you have going up against them here. Amplify, they managed to get that control of the high ground hanging around the corner. Rhino is going to be that player to contest the point, but since Amplify have that superior positioning, they can run around the point with that Sombra Tracer, where you're forced to play the high ground if you're Afterlife right now. Nice bio-nade to force the Winston back, get some more space to work with in this specific instance, but nobody is really close to getting a final blow. It's just gonna be this neutral game until that bio-nade strikes. Buddy setting up their team once again with Meter. Lethal, he wants to be that hit scan prowess, though nobody's really gone up to contest them. In fact, it's the Brigida, the one who gets the first laugh, and Afterlife with that first capture, which is big on a point that is difficult to flip, but it's not gonna last long if Buddy keeps hitting bio-nades like that, Ray.
Buddy is carrying these team fights for Amplify. The hard work is paying off. Tiny. His hit rate on these nades feels like he's hitting every single one, and Amplify is just taking full advantage of getting these quick picks. I mean, you steal 15% if you're Afterlife, but for what? You're back to spawn room. Amplify now has control, and they are in a prime position, but you find Buddy.
You get Buddy off the bat. You cannot have asked for a better elimination right now if you're Afterlife, but do Amplify decide to stick around this? They're gonna hang out just to get some more ult charge, and PG has this EMP here, so you give up the point, but I have a feeling this is gonna be a pretty quick re-engage here.
I have a feeling too they were very smart to just back out and re-engage with their honor, especially since you have the nano boost. You had to wait, but PGE has this EMP, and that is the tool that Amplify is waiting for to use to win this fight.
There it is, the EMP is out onto both Fix and Lethal, both of which are able to stay alive as PGE went down to that extra damage from the Ana. That is the reaction that Afterlife needed to have. They could not have handled that any better than they just did. That win condition gone. Amplify are forced to swap over to the Soldier now. You lose a lot of utility in the process to try to trade it out for raw damage.
Yeah, which is surprising to me because PGE was so dominant on Gibraltar on this Ashe, so I'm surprised you're not trying to match Lethal. And the good thing for Afterlife is even if Amplify puts pressure on this point, you can just throw Bob down there, which they do.
Objective. Just gonna keep that point nice, safe, and sound. Tap isn't gonna want to go anywhere near it, and it just buys more time. Even if Afterlife don't end up winning this battle in the end, but they want to win it right on Nano Boost and powered up. Buddy did not stand a chance against a character of that size. Rhino not done just yet though, finds the other support battle. Afterlife, this is the map that we wanted to see come out for the sake of pushing this series forward, and it looks like they're about to do so. One more shot for Amplify to go ahead and flip this point into their favor.
Yeah, you get the late stagger onto PGE, so they're gonna have to wait and take a full regroup as PGE has just spawned back. So we're looking at a Nano Boost versus a Primal Rage, and I'm liking my chances with Rhino being able to disrupt PGE on the Sojourn on the high ground with that Primal.
Yep, Doge already pushing the high ground though. Rhino is gonna have that same power, but the point needs to be more important. Doge being rather indecisive, needs to pick a target or the objective now or never. This point is actually gonna get flipped over. Amplify kind of let that one go. You would say it's a mistake, but not if they're confident they can reposition, win the fight, and Zero and Lethal are proving they can do just that. 2 down, 5v3 in favor of the purple squad. We are going all the way here, Ray. This is going to a round number 3 icebreaker is where this banger of a series is going to be decided.
The main issue I'm feeling, Tiny, is icebreakers specifically. I don't think if you're Afterlife, you can play the Winston here. No. I think it is just going to get eaten alive by the close quarters. There we go.
Finally!
We see Afterlife making that swap over to the Ramatra. This is the map where they go. I think they're in the same boat as me. We're not going to be able to win with the Winston. We have to go Ramatra here, but I like the supports they're going with. We see Amplify. They like to go with the Lucio Moira. The problem with them is they have to win the fights extremely fast because Moira's limited on those heals, but they have that necessary extra damage to be able to do that from the Reaper. Afterlife has Zera, who's going to be on the Sojourn, so you're going to be looking for those rail shots, but you have more healing from Fix and the Immortality field to work with.
I do like the support comp better on the side of Afterlife, but this DPS is where I'm going to kind of see it's going to depend where these battles are taken, honestly. If PGE can get up close and personal, before Zero manages to take somebody's head off, then all right, I'm going to go ahead and say I favor the Reaper here. That's all going to matter based off of these May walls. Rhino both looking for this Lucio, but gets caught up on the tank, and PGE, the first one to strike that lethal blow onto both the DPS, ironically here. But the support's coming up, being the DPS duo of their own, traded out. It is even on either side, but Amplify in control of the point at this time. They just don't have the health bars to realistically maintain themselves for a long period. It's all about that long-term stall. Buddy nearing closer and closer to that coalescence should they need it, but with Rhino falling, this should be Amplify taking a breath.
As Amplify, I think this Reaper adaptation with the upfront damage that you can apply to Rhino on this Ramatra makes it so difficult for him to be able to play his job. And Zera has not been able to find those rail shots before for Afterlife. That's going to be the key, is Zera has to find these picks with these railgun shots to be able to justify playing the Sojourn.
Yeah, we haven't seen it just yet. If it doesn't work here, you need to consider a swap, but there it is, just as we wanted to see it. Zera coming up with the elimination that's big, but with all of the ultimates that Amplify and Afterlife is committed, it is going to be a chaotic fight, to say the least, and this annihilation are making it brutal. All of the particle effects on the screen. Yes, it hurts my eyeballs, but it is a beautiful sight to watch, where these players are how they're working together, and in the end, it is Zera and Lethal coming out on top, making this Sojourn come to light when we really need to see it.
Yeah, and I think Doge is just delaying the inevitable. I mean, you do get the pick on the Lethal, but it doesn't matter. The point had already been flipped, and you were... What? They flipped the point?
There was an immortality field that was thrown through Rhino. Rhino was confident they were okay, but didn't realize Tap was there, so you lose the tank. Now you're forcing an early overclock commit, and you wanted to see it, but that's okay, because Zero gets double kill to pull it all together. Yeah, you might be yelling at Rhino, but if you have Zero, you're caught patting this guy in the back.
but that took every single ultimate
Oh
that you
no.
had in your bank if you're Afterlife. I mean, now you get to be in this more of attacking position where you get to hold these choke points. So it makes Amplify's job much harder to get in, especially since they're going to have to use a lot of healing just to push through in this fight. So that makes them have to win even faster because of those limited heals of the Moira.
Gotta make this one work fast. PGE is gonna do just that. Spot the opportunity for the Death Blossom in the go. Grabs one. Both supports out of the battle. Might lose PGE, but that blow hasn't been done. Afterlife needed to get off at this point, and they need to come back together as a unit with a plan to take this.
Yeah, as these people who are just straggling in the back, they just need to get out. Lethal dies as you need to completely reset because Amplify is holding this point, can have both of their support ultimates online. The only real advantage you're going to have coming in this fight if you're Afterlife is you have the Blizzard coming up for you. But like I mentioned, they have both their support ultimates to continue to hold this.
Bavaria really needed to counter out that Blizzard as well, and Amplify, they've managed to stall enough time where this fight, if they win it, that reverse sweep is very much well there. Lethal gotta come up big on that Blizzard. The support ultimates are coming out early, but Lethal spots the opportunity for that Blizzard to be unleashed. Only catches through a Matra. If they can get the burn down on this target, Soundberry there from Power Boost. That power block back up. Amplify still remaining within control. Afterlife, they're losing players one by one by one. Tap coming out on top, and Amplify look like they are just about to do it, Ray. What we thought was impossible has happened. Amplify, they broke their 5-match curse, coming away with their first win of the Contenders Summer Series.
This is what you love to see in contenders. You don't like it when one team is just constantly losing and they're winning, like, you know, they're always in these close maps. It's nice to spread the wins around. Wow, just incredible coming out from Amplify. That's got to just be a great boost for them heading into week 2. I mean, you lose 3, but your last game of the week is the win. You're able to go back to the drawing board a little bit, VOD review these matches from this weekend. You got a whole week of scrims to improve, and you're going to come back into week 2 with a little bit of momentum on your side and feeling a little bit better about where you're at as a team.
You wanted to be, you ended on a good note, and this shows signs for improvement here. We were both went into this series, right, thinking like, oh, this is something that Afterlife should have the advantage and that they can take this away. And you know how we started this? We started this 2-0. We came back from that break, and it's like something changed within Amplify, that they're like, all right, we need to win this. We're refusing to go down on a 4th loss of the week, and here they are. They managed to chain together 3 maps in a row to make it back to this point and secure themselves that first win. And it just shows that every single team within this competition is a valid competitor, and there isn't one that we can say confidently is going to be that very top contender. Nobody is at the bottom, because we're all just kind of smack dab in the middle, and this is what makes this summer series so intriguing, Ray. And it's really just such an amazing opportunity to have these matches on broadcast as well, and to showcase these players and these talents, everything Contenders has to offer.
Yeah, I don't know if production can do this real quick. Is there any way we can bring up the updated scores that we've seen since round 4 has pretty much been concluding? Yeah, look at that. Timeless beat Saints. Let's go. Oh, only one undefeated team remains, and that is O3 Splash. I am loving this. And there's only one team who doesn't have a win yet, which is Worldwide. So I'm rooting for them to finally get a win, taking at the scores that we just saw. O3 Splash again. That is 3 out of their first 4 matches as well, them winning 3-2. So pretty crazy there coming out of O3 Splash. But got a little bit of a treat for you guys. We're going to go on a quick break while we try and set up an interview with someone from the winning team. We'll be right back.
thank you all for coming back after such a thriller of a matchup. Amplify completed the reverse sweep, broke their map 5 curse, and are now at a 1-3 record, moving on forwards. And we do have a treat with us, and that treat is Buddy, the legendary Ana player. He's been on the grind and had some huge plays to make up for this amazing victory that we saw, and the amount of fights that you're win solo, Buddy. First of all, I want to. First of all, you need to know that you played a huge part in this victory. If you didn't know that already, your teammates better tell you that. And second of all, what is it like right now? You just won your first match within the contender stage with this team, and I bet you their emotions are running high.
Yeah, I mean this is my first reverse sweep in contenders ever. I haven't had this before. This is my first time ever having a reverse sweep, so I don't know. I'm kind of shaking. Like mid like at the last map, like mid map, my dad came into my room because it was too loud. It's like I'm in EU, so it's 6 a.m. almost right now. It was like,
Oh,
"Bro, it's too loud,
wow.
too loud." And I'm like, it's your first sweep right now, you know. It's like so tense. I don't know. But yeah, I can't be happier. It was an overwhelming game. We kept the mental together till the end and paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys really were just playing so well as a team, and you guys finally started. What was the major difference for you guys after Noombani? What was that switch, that flip that really brought you guys that reverse sweep home?
I mean, the first 2 maps they were pretty close. Like Noombani was close. First map was a bit less close, but still pretty close. And I mean, the Gibraltar is just like a map that we practice a lot. Like we're very good at watch point, so it was like our comfort map pick. So we took that map like easily. Like it's our best map. And then after that, we just kept it going. Like the second map, Esperanza, like the Summer Tracer game was just incredible. So. Yeah, and then the
That it
third map,
was.
we were just in it.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
it was
I'm sure.
incredible. Yeah, I'm so happy for you guys because I actually casted your guys' game yesterday against O3 Splash, and man, I was just reeling for you guys to be up 2-1 like that. But you know, thinking about how things have been going. I mean, we were kind of talking beforehand, but you got yourself a little bit of a fan base, especially one of the main stands I've been seeing in chat is Dawn, who is just reeling for you, man. So, I mean, what do you think about all these new fans that are coming in the chat for you?
I mean, Don's not really a new fan, to be honest.
Well, yeah, of course.
Nah, he's my teammate, you know, from Team Netherlands. I love the guy. He's amazing, amazing teammate, you know. I'd love to compete with him again, Team Netherlands next year for the World Cup, and I'm glad to have him on board supporting me. You know, love all my teammates from Team Netherlands. Special shout out to them. I love all of you guys, but the same love for all my teammates on Amplify. These guys are amazing.
Just one more question before I pass it back to Tiny. I mean, it's got to be feeling pretty good. I mean, you lost the first 3 maps, but you get to finish off the week strong. I was talking on broadcast that now you guys get to take some time, VOD review, scrim. How are you feeling about you and your team as we move forward into the next couple of weeks of the Summer Series?
I mean, actually quite confident because our game against O3 obviously was like very close. We did really well. There were some like lesser moments, of course, but yeah, I'm feeling very confident. We still got a good chance, and I mean, this is just a round robin. You know, we've just only begun.
I don't know if you saw it, but O3 Splash is actually the only remaining undefeated team left. So pretty insane, pretty insane. So go ahead, Tiny.
You guys have really just blown everybody away today, and coming away with that map. And you played so much Overwatch today. What is that, 10 maps that you played of these high level competitions? Like, that level of endurance is insane to me. Like, if you don't compete in Overwatch, you don't know what that feeling is at all. And it's so cool that you guys are there, that you get to enjoy yourselves while you're doing it, and have this chance to come out on top. You're really making a name for yourselves out there. And Buddy, it was awesome to see you play within the contender stage today. And before we go ahead and close you out so you can go ahead and probably get some sleep, do you have any last words that you would like to say before we close out, whether shout outs, anything to your teammates, future competition?
Yeah, again, I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here for the interview. Thank you so much. Of course, thank my teammates. Shout out to them, Tab, Peachy, all the boys back there. Love you guys. And also special shout out to all the boys from Team Netherlands. Love you guys too. And yeah, only forward from now on. Gonna roll through the rest of this round robin. gonna win.
I love the burst of confidence that we have from you, buddy, and I will definitely be following you, as well as all of these other people that have come out to support Amplify with you today. So thank you so much for joining us on this interview and giving us an inside look of the Amplify team. And we're looking forward to seeing how you guys end up taking these matches within the future. So go ahead, get some rest, and we'll be sure to see you next week.
I will. Yes.
All right. It has been a long day, a long couple of days for everyone. So, I mean, just shout outs to everyone who's been in the chats throughout all the streams that Timeless has been doing. Shout out to Timeless for doing this event. Just having so much coverage in the tier 2 scene is just awesome. I think it's going to breathe so much life into the scene. And with that is going to pretty much wrap it up for me and Tiny Shiny. Again, shout outs to our producers. We got Knock on Wood, who's been holding it down on the production side. And then Cawthor, and then it was beamgarden who are doing the observing. We could not do what we do without you guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week, Monday and Tuesday, for some more Contenders coverage. See you guys later.